The election interference case against President Trump and 18 co-defendants coming out of Fulton County, Georgia, has been dropped in its entirety. Why did this take so long to happen? Why is this happening? Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the election interference case against President Trump and 18 co-defendants being dropped in its entirety. Now, this was obviously going to happen. It was a long time coming. It was only a matter of time. Before we get into the news of today, let's back up a little bit and explain. In 2020, it was alleged that President Trump had called the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brett Raffensperger, and said, hey, where are some more votes? Can we get some more votes? Now, that right there was enough for the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, to say, hey, we have enough to go ahead and indict the president and 18 co-defendants. The problem is it's not really anything there, number one. And number two, Fani Willis had some skeletons in her closet. Now, one of these skeletons was this big 6'3" looking, Nigerian looking dude named Nathan Wade, who was her sugar baby, to which she allegedly gave 600,000 U.S. American cold hard taxpayer American dollars before the trial against Trump even started. And if you want a refresher right quick, that's them right there. Right when they were announcing the charges against Trump and the co-defendants, that's Big Nate right by her side. And of course, Nate was married. Is he still married right now? I'm not really sure, but he was married during the time. It was a whole big mess. So ultimately, after a bunch of back and forth, a bunch of rigmarole, Fani Willis is removed from the case. Now, once that happens, the case was pretty much dead in the water. There was no more that can be done. Although the case was still there was so many delays and, it was just a mess. And then, of course, Trump became the president. So that pretty much killed it. Trump becoming the president ended all of the trials, essentially. And this one was ended because of that, and also because Fani Willis had her own improprieties. Now, before I go any further, let's get into the actual news clip here. Of course, I will link to the clip in the box if you want to see it and hear it without my commentary. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
We are following breaking news just into CNN. A Georgia prosecutor officially dropped the historic racketeering case against President Trump and others for attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I want to go right to CNN's Kara Scannell. What are you learning, Kara?
Good morning, Pam. Yeah, this new filing in from the prosecutor who had taken the place to look into the Fulton County investigation of Donald Trump and others has filed a motion with the court saying that they are not going to move forward with the case. They're dropping the charges. What he filed what's known as a nolle pros, and that means that in theory, because if the statute of limitations hasn't run out, a case could be refiled. But he attached to his filing about a 20-page statement explaining his rationales for why he did not think that they should move forward with this case. You'll remember this was the case that began with Donald.
Before she goes into the history, I'm going to explain why it happened. In his 20-page report, he's saying there's nothing really there. He's already the president. That it just wouldn't make any sense to go forward. It's basically, in a nutshell, says he became the president, it's over, which was the case for all the other cases.
Trump making a call to the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, urging him to find the votes. And then District Attorney Fani Willis brought this historic investigation and filed those racketeering charges against Donald Trump and dozens of others for interfering with the 2020 election. She was then disqualified from the case because of an undisclosed romantic relationship with another prosecutor. And that is how this case now fell.
Big Nathan Wade.
Into the hands earlier this month of a prosecutor who was assigned the job of trying to find someone to take on this case. He said that he couldn't because there were too many conflicts, and he took it on himself. Now we're seeing the results of that, and that is that he is saying that they are not going to move forward with this case. And he summarized it in part by saying that he made this decision by examining the case file, examining what the jury had been presented, and also considerations of the law. He says that
I mean, she's, it's CNN, so they're going to kind of summarize it. They want to summarize it. But like I said, His 20-page report basically said he won, he became the president. It doesn't make any sense to go forward because, in my humble opinion, the reason why the case was brought forward was to prevent Trump from getting into office. And it wasn't just this one. It was the thing in New York. It was all these different things they were trying to hit him with. None of it worked. He becomes the president, so it all goes away.
Contesting an election is not unlawful, but and that is part of the reasons for why he decided not to move forward with the charges at this point. But again, this is a null pros filing, meaning that they're dropping the case right now. In theory, it could be revived if the statute of limitations doesn't run out. But of course, Donald Trump is still in office for another 3 years. Pam, this is the last of the criminal prosecutions that have been hanging over Donald Trump as he entered the White House. The only conviction that he faced out of the 4 indictments was the one in New York for the hush money payments, and that one he is appealing. Pam?
All right.
There we go. So shout out to President Trump. Of course, I knew that he was going to defeat all these silly cases. I think y'all knew the exact same thing. Like I said from the beginning, the purpose was to keep him out of the White House. It didn't work. And you know what? Here's a crazy take. I think they, and when I say they, I mean those who are evil, those of the dark energy, those who don't want to see this nation or the world succeed. I think when they realized the play about using the court system was not going to work and the cases were falling apart and there was not much public support for these cases, not enough to make a difference. Once that was clear, then they tried to go ahead and just take him out in Pennsylvania. But that didn't work. God's on this side. So what do? Just retreat because you were defeated. You tried the funny elections, you tried the court cases, you tried to shoot them, and it didn't work. So now they say, okay, they tried and they failed. That's what's going on. I think that's what the special prosecutor here, who replaced Fani Willis because of her impropriety with the sugar baby, I think that's what he said in his 20-page report. But as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to President Trump, the Teflon Don. Hey, they didn't threw everything at you, including the kitchen sink. They threw it all. Stormy Daniels, court cases, a gun, a weapon, a bullet in the head. Nothing worked. So what do? Just fall back and let us keep going forward. And I think, as I said before, this is more about good versus evil than Democrat versus Republican or whatever you want to call it. Good versus evil. And it's clear to see who's on the side of good and who's on the side of evil. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about all these cases against President Trump being dropped and this one in Georgia being the final one to be dropped? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. Do you think that it's going to get refiled? Do you think they're going to really try to go at him again after he's not the president anymore? What would be the point of that? I mean, people are going to be vindictive and petty, but what are you going to gain from that aside from being vindictive and petty? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I'm glad this chapter has come to an end. It's been a long time coming. I thought the case should have been dropped a long time ago. They kept trying to keep it alive with delays and this and that and the third. But really, there were 2 things that happened. First, Trump won the presidency, so that killed it. And then the second thing was Fani Willis and her sugar baby being exposed. How are you going to be a prosecutor trying to get Donald Trump locked up when you are allegedly using taxpayer monies inappropriately to pay for that boy toy you got? Like, make that make sense. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.